Over the Christmas period, I had chance to return home to see family and friends, as well as visit a few places, including Liverpool, Manchester and Nantwich, a small Cheshire town where I used to live. The difference between these places was striking to me, both in terms of their aesthetic qualities and the atmosphere that was palpable walking through them. While there is much to enjoy in larger cities such as Manchester and Liverpool, such as the vivid nightlife and variety of cuisines, there is an emptiness to the non-stop hustle and bustle of their streets and a dissolution of the essential elements that made them British. Now they are international cities, and with that comes a flattening of the culture and of character. As mass immigration has led to these cities becoming more and more the melting pots that progressives claim that they have always been, there has been a trend towards a neutral style of architecture that will not leave anyone feeling displaced, but at the same time has no connection to the nations that they find themselves in. Like London, these cities hold traces of the culture that formerly dominated within them, but increasingly these are being engulfed by the monumental glass towers that surround them. London has changed, of course, many times throughout the centuries, but it always had an English character, which I would say is being lost. The same can be said of many other cities across England, and I understand that many recent changes have been necessary to replace those areas that were destroyed during World War II, but realistically, did we have to replace what came before with so much that's just simply unappealing? This trend, in a sense, seems inevitable, purely due to the geographical realities of cities alongside property development laws and regulations, which are forcing new buildings into the skies rather than expanding the sprawl outwards and into the green belt. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want anyone steamrolling the gorgeous rural landscape of Britain and turning the whole island into a megacity. However, where once cities like New York built the Empire State Building, which aimed for aesthetic quality alongside sheer size, and other buildings had a variety of designs, now every new development seems to be a riff on the same idea: tall glass tower. Basically, if this is the way that the cities are going, it would be nice to see some more ambition and traditional elements incorporated into new architectural designs, even if it does cost a bit more. This architectural homogeneity within the modern cities is one of many factors that I feel encourages the internationalist attitudes of the metropolitan populations within them. For instance, the drab uniformity of a gigantic glass Jenga block reaching far into the sky might appeal to those who wish to feel part of something bigger than themselves, who don't want to be tied down to a nationality or people. After all, they appeal to a vision of human achievement whereby pure technological advancement is the only thing worth consideration. But beyond being a monolithic shrine unto itself, it does not aesthetically represent anything unique to the country it finds itself in. These buildings do not belong to a culture or tradition that grant them greater meaning. A big glass tower, basically, looks the same and conveys the same character in London as it does in Dubai. If you were to drop me in a modern city centre anywhere in the world, I would likely be hard-pressed to make an accurate guess of where I was. Perhaps there would be a few hints in the form of older buildings lingering around, but beyond these rare specific holdovers from bygone times, the landscape would be dominated by culturally anonymous glass and steel giants. In essence, this trend towards a removal of discernible culture can only appeal to those who never felt a connection to their native culture in the first place, or have found themselves in a land far away from their indigenous people. Contrast this with the charming character of a town like Nantwich, centred in traditional fashion around its beautiful church, where almost every building holds reminders of its rich Tudor heritage. Small towns like this act as time capsules, capturing in wood, brick and mortar specific moments throughout our history that we may not remember personally, but have shaped us in ways deeper than we can rationally comprehend. In essence, they tell stories. These stories are clear everywhere you look. Around every corner you'll find some reminder of its history, from small signs denoting private roads not to be used by horse or carriage, to the glorious Tudor buildings themselves, with signs in front of them explaining their history. You can't escape the knowledge that you are somewhere that is very, very old. Even new businesses, like the clubs that make up the vibrant nightlife, have to fit into these old buildings and make sure not to alter their aesthetic qualities that make the town so pleasant. The fire in Nantwich of 1583 destroyed much of the town, and what was left standing has remained ever since, as a reminder of what came before, which can be lost so very easily. As a result, when you enter the town, there's a sense of heritage and reverence that's missing from metropolitan cities where everything is treated as disposable. There are exceptions, such as the beautiful and very English cities of Chester and York, yet these are very much exceptions to the trend. But this kind of small, quaint town and its quiet living may not appeal to some who are used to more modern accommodations. If I'm being honest, the dimensions of many of the rooms in Nantwich buildings mean a man, such as myself, has to frequently stoop to fit through the short door frames and avoid wooden beams. Rooms facing the streets often don't have double glazing due to regulations preventing their addition, as it would change the aesthetic character of the town. This means that these rooms can get a little bit chilly. But it shows that these are structures built for a different time when people were shorter and more used to a chill breeze. It may be superficially inconvenient compared with modern prefix rooms with their regulated spacing, energy-efficient windows and designed by committee feel, but despite this, the inheritance that these old buildings represent is precious and not something that we should sweep away easily. The internationalist architecture of the city speaks no language and tells no story. As such, it is very inclusive, yet it excludes anyone seeking something that reflects their values and heritage. The steel and glass create a bland aesthetic uniformity built for a modern vision of progress rather than the grand artistic achievements that prior generations aspired to. Now the only achievement aimed at is to see how high our buildings can go. It may not be as bad as the hideous brutalist architecture common in the 1970s, but that's small conciliations to those of us with an eye for more than blank utility. Once their economic purposes are no longer relevant and businesses move to the next new development, what will these buildings stand for? Or will they just be something else to bulldoze and forget? The legacy that we receive is not ours to demolish. Just because I exist in this immediate space and time does not mean that I'm free to shape all around me to my fleeting desires. If the cities want to flatten everything that came before them in the name of mindless progress, then that's their loss. But the rural small town has a character that we must preserve. The stories they tell are a shared responsibility and should be passed on to the next generation for them to enjoy, and we should endeavour to imbue them with the same sense of respect and reverence for their cultural traditions and heritage that will encourage them to preserve the character of the nation moving forwards. The fact is that I'm lucky to come from a place with such rich history and culture, somewhere that whenever I return to, it feels like home. This is a history we all share, but not everybody cherishes. So, our past is precious. Let's not forget it.